for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson. I'm your co-host.
I'm Katy Steele.
I'm Jack Prince.
And we've got quite a few topics to talk about. We're going to talk about the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. We're going to talk about Naomi Osaka and mental health. We're going to talk about some things happening in Canada involving an Indigenous school. They have found some bodies on the grounds up there, and this is something that's really starting to take hold all across the U.S., especially in this area. I'm really shocked that local journalists are talking about what's happening in Canada and how it affects the state of Michigan. Plus, we have two Hammer Time winners this week, and we'll get to all of that in just a moment. Before we get started, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com or at Stitcher.com by doing a search for Southpaws. You can find us on Apple Podcasts by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, WOOL in Bellows Falls, Vermont, KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas, and a special shout-out this week to KOWA, Olympia, Washington, for downloading last week's show. Thank you for downloading us. Hopefully you add us to your schedule. And as a reminder, please donate your time and or your money to your local Pacifica station because they could always use the help.
Right.
Well, Jack, this is a topic that we've talked about before on the show, and I know this is something near and dear to your heart. We just came up on the 100th anniversary of the burning down of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the murder of several hundred black people.
Yeah, I had a unit of journalism, and I taught this at Union High School 10 years ago. And the shocking thing was the lack of any understanding, not in the young students, you would expect that, but in the teachers. The absolute complete void of any cognizance of the massacre that took place. So we put on our wall outside the classroom these big sheets of paper that were provided by the school that listed the 10 worst U.S. history. The only qualification had to be on U.S. soil, massacres. We had the Bigelow or the Ludlow Massacre, the one that Guthrie sang about. We had Sand Creek. Yeah. And then we highlighted the similarities between the massacres. We found that in all cases, usually done very early in the morning. Just when people were waking up, they were looking at machine gun fire.
Oh, wow.
It was a real study. And the teachers en masse complained to the principal.
What?
In mass. The ROTC guy threatened to come up and take him down.
The ROTC guy.
No surprise there.
Oh, right. Oh, my goodness.
So there is a complete ignorance in the mind of America to these kinds of atrocities. I applaud the show that came out.
Yeah, I mean, not only are they ignorant to it, but even when you show it to them and put it in their face, they want to push back.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
That to me is
and everything was sourced.
You're
Katy.
A teacher.
Bury my heart, wounded knee, page. It was all sourced.
Oh, that is so sick.
There were teachers that thought it was good. Don't get me wrong.
Right, I'm sure.
But any educated person,
any educator should look at facts.
Exactly.
And abide by what history teaches us. Otherwise, what are we doing but going in circles? Horrible, horrible circles.
The
Yeah,
massacre in
exactly.
Tulsa, they bombed these innocent people with planes.
Yeah, they put planes up in the air and started lobbing bottles with basically Molotov cocktails
Exactly. Yeah.
at these people's houses and businesses.
Yeah.
We have to ask ourselves too, where are we now, today? At what point are they showing up with the bombs? Will it be tomorrow morning? Will it be the next morning? Because history repeats itself.
Yeah.
People
Unfortunately.
aren't paying attention, but they're organizing, the powers that be. They're trying really hard to push down the uprising that's happening across every, I mean, I can't name a category of human beings that are not really disgruntled and dissatisfied and ready to rise up and get what they deserve. So I do believe that we are looking at the possibility of another Red Scare type situation. You know, it was 100 years ago, 1920, when they came out and
Yeah.
got everybody for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's appalling behavior.
Oh,
But
when
this
did you
isn't-
guys learn about the Tulsa Massacre? I should ask this because we're all different generations. Different
quite truthfully,
decades here.
about 2 years ago when Jack brought it up on the show.
Thank you, because I think it was the show or one of your Facebook posts that got me looking into it. I don't think I had heard of it before that, and I have only been trying to remember this morning because I was shocked at how many people have
Yeah.
never heard of it.
Well,
Yeah.
there's been many massacres, particularly against the Native Americans, that are historically recorded. It's not hard
Yeah.
to find them. Now, with the black massacres, Joe Anderson, a colleague, just posted a few days ago the massacres around the United States, and the map is dotted with them. It's not just Tulsa. Tulsa may have been
One of them.
the largest. See, and the thing with the Tulsa massacre that makes it unique is there was a combination between them and the Indians. The Creeks that were run out of, nice form of genocide, North Carolina,
Okay.
and the Cherokee were forced marched to Oklahoma.
Oh, and that was when the grassroots thing started to.
Yeah, so when they got there, they were granted 40 acres and a mule,
Okay.
just like the blacks. But that
Yeah.
was before oil was discovered.
Okay.
As soon as oil was discovered, all of that property, and it was in the millions of acres
They
that was
needed it.
belonged by Indians and the blacks. And the thing they really detested was the unification between the Indians and the
Right.
blacks.
That's
They-
the one thing they try to stop immediately, even here in Grand Rapids.
Yeah,
the second
exactly.
they see it.
Yeah.
Yep. They will keep Cosecha and Black Lives Matter divided, no matter what they have to do. I could name the people they used to do it, but I don't need to because if you're an activist here in Grand Rapids, you know their names.
sure
You
do.
know the people that are going to divide everybody up and make it an argument and are not out there to do the work. That's what they do to
See,
people every
economic
time.
experts say if you ever want an example in the United States where there was economic freedom, primarily the ownership of land,
Mm-hmm.
to prove that will spill over into prosperity. There were lawyers, doctors, there was a theater.
Mm-hmm.
It was because of the fact that they were allowed for a few decades to own property
Right.
that resulted in Greenwood. Greenwood wouldn't have existed if they hadn't been given the right to own property, which was
Right.
quickly snatched away.
Right. Exactly, because they couldn't give them that kind of power.
No.
And they knew that was where the power came from. I mean, in Grand Rapids, when they first settled here, what they did was, Irishmen would own land, and then they would bring their family over, and they would have them work on their farms, and they would give them part of their land.
Exactly.
And that was exactly
You were
how
on your
the
way.
white people colonized.
And then we
yeah.
had John Kennedy decades later.
Yeah.
Without that land ownership, couldn't have done it.
Exactly.
The first land in this area was in a little town called Yellow Springs, Ohio, which is the end of an underground railroad. The first property sold to a black man is commemorated. Dave Chappelle's family,
Really?
whose dad was a professor there at it's Antioch College. It's where the Kings went to college. and
Antioch.
everything.
Okay, yeah.
The prosperity the blacks experienced and the mental revolution that they were able to experience revolved around the fact they could buy property.
Yes, that makes so much sense because when you've got property, you don't need anything else. You had your water, you had your produce, you didn't have to go pay somebody else. It was
Exactly.
everything you needed,
Yep.
and that's what they don't want us to see even today. It's why we stay in this zip and running around and get to the grocery store and go there and go back and forth.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly it. And Jack, you had mentioned, and it's been on the news as well, they've been looking for a mass grave in Tulsa where they just dumped all the bodies, and apparently they have found at least 8 more inside of a cemetery somewhere
I think
in
the
Tulsa.
total now is 20 between the first discovery and now the new discovery, 20 bodies, and there's many more to go.
So
Yeah, and they've pretty much have lowballed the death toll of the Tulsa Race
Definitely.
Massacre. I think most figures say 200, and it's probably a hell of a lot more than
Exactly.
200.
Yeah. Yeah. it would be.
I want to know how many children we currently have. Like,
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah. And now you had mentioned the pairing between Native Americans and the Black American community. Well, let's go ahead and get into our next topic, which is the findings that in Canada. Katy, you wanted to talk about this at great length here. So apparently they found a mass grave on the site of a Canadian school, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Basically a re-education school for Indigenous people.
Which are, well, they were all over the United States.
Yeah.
Ever since we forced Native Americans into reservations
Yep.
and, took the resources and forced them to live in poverty. And then we decided, oh, look at this. They're neglecting their children.
Yeah. So we're going to take your children. We're going to give them an education, but it's not going to be an education like you would give them. We're going to give them the good old English language,
Yep.
fear God, become Christian
Yep.
education.
Exactly. Yep.
Change their name.
Yep.
Change
Beat
their
them if
name.
they speak
yes.
the language.
And that is, it's actually written into the programs of these schools, to, I believe Jack was saying earlier that they had an actual, I don't want to say motto, but like a philosophy, which was, the words were, kill the Indian, save the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they believe.
Like,
Yep. And I was really shocked. I believe it was Thursday on Wood Television, our local NBC affiliate here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Heather Walker, who is a fantastic reporter, did a story on this because the Gun Lake tribe, which is a pretty dominant tribe around the West Michigan area, they want a federal government investigation into whether or not this also happened at the re-education schools that we had in Michigan
Across
and
Michigan.
around the
Yep.
country.
Yep.
we all know that it did. We know that it did. In fact, these schools are what gave Bethany Christian the template. Bethany Christian Services made their template from this cultural reappropriation of the Native Americans.
That's right.
They use Christianity to do it from watching the missionaries. I mean, history is repeating itself, but in the form of a nonprofit. If you look at this agency and you go through their actual foundation papers and you read their whole foundation, where they started, what they're about, all of their rules, it is stated in their rules, in their book, their handbook, that these children that they have in their care are going to be given an education in American culture. They are taught to speak English. They aren't to use their own language. They are dressed in scrubs. They're dressed in the same little brown uniforms, okay? Because they don't want them to look like their families. They don't want them to look like the people from their country. They want them to look like us, and they want them to be all the same. And right now, the scariest part is that they're saying these kids are in foster care and residential centers, right? And they're convincing us that we have to do this for these kids we're taking from the border now, because they're being neglected, and it's better for them than their current situation, which is the same thing they've said about Native American kids when they were putting them in the back of wagons and shipping them in negative degrees to some school where they're going to throw them in, dressed, like half dressed, not even well fed, not taken care of, and then they're going to make them work, and these kids now, I already see there is a residential center to prison pipeline. When these kids age out of these Bethany Christian centers, it is already set up. They go to the Kent County Jail. They go to the juvenile detention center.
Yep.
We have already got one of the sheriff departments who is complaining because they just built a residential center for children in Calhoun County, thanks to Peter Meyer, who helped. This deputy was complaining. I'm sorry, he was the chief of the sheriff. He was
Calhoun County Sheriff.
Calhoun County Sheriff. Thank you, Darren.
Yeah.
He was complaining that they don't have enough funding because they didn't get any funding to help with these kids. First of all, they don't need funding because the kids are in a state-run treatment center that has gotten funding. But he's worried about what are we going to do if they sexually assault someone, or what if they do this and we don't have the money to take them to jail. Those are the concerns. And so this is an American process.
It's an American tradition.
It's an American tradition. It really is.
Voted
And
upon.
it's what we have been built upon, is stripping everybody in the world of their culture. And we don't have culture here, friends. Like, what are we giving them? And American culture doesn't mean anything. What is it? Hot dogs and hamburgers?
Exploitation.
Murder?
Yeah, well,
exploitation, assault, sexual abuse. What is American culture?
Well, if you listen to the ads, it's what is a baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet.
I don't want anything to do with any of those things. I am over America at this point because this is what we do. We murder children, babies, for being brown or black or poor or just for being children. I mean, it's all about consolidating power.
You know, it's shocking. I bought a set of books called Bury Your Heart at Wounded Knee because it comes from maybe the most renowned journalist, a woman journalist in history, who recorded these atrocities.
Really?
Okay? And I had to convince a panel at Grand Rapids Public Schools that this was worth the money because it was a big, beautiful pictorial book. Cost a lot of money.
What was the name of it?
Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee.
Buried My Heart at Wounded Knee?
Right. So I went to Pine Ridge Reservation, and I went to Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee with Sharon, and I found a school run by, what are the Catholics called? The special, like they're Franciscans or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm at this school, and I go, hey, listen, I've got some great books. Because as soon as I left Union High School, they just put them in a closet. They were boxed up. Mm-hmm. I've got some great books to give to your students here, and they wouldn't let it be done. I said, have you ever taught Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee to these Lakota Sioux right here, whose ancestors died just a few miles away on these hills, were slaughtered? Did they even know it? Oh. You're asking people for money, and you're imposing ignorance on these students. It was incredible.
Of course.
Then I get to the monument of where the massacre took place, of Wounded Knee. Another massacre, by the way. We didn't even list that one. Oh. And there's a little sign about this big. Mm-hmm. And 2 or 3 Native Americans come up to the car. We'll give you a little explanation. If you could give us some money, they're literally shaking with starvation.
Oh, my gosh.
We said, no, we want you to go eat
First
right
of all,
now.
yes.
Don't even... And here's this little commemoration. It looks out over the field where the massacre took place. It was an open grave. I'm talking about open graves. The pictures were taken. They were still frozen days later when the U.S. military went back and cleaned up their handiwork and buried them in a trench that's still on the hill. Not exactly a tourist spot, but a place that's buried. The historical significance of this has never been presented to the Americans. You can't get it out at Union High School. You can't get it out at the schools there in Pine Ridge.
Oh my gosh! This is so insane to me. Like when it ties into my. I just got back from New York. I went there, drawn by my own genealogy, to the area where my family supposedly lived in the 1700s, which happened to be on the corner of the New York Stock Exchange.
Gee,
oh boy!
So I descended from the Forbes silversmiths. Abraham was one of them. There was.
But we're going to let you sit here.
But anyways.
You can remain with us.
Yeah.
Trust me. My daughter did her ancestry, and it tied her directly to Marie Antoinette. And I was like, I guess at some point, the colonization gets so bad, you actually physically reject it yourself, which is who I am now. It's so bad.
Oh.
But I get there, right? And the first thing I see is I happened to stay in a hotel. It was an Airbnb, so it was super cheap, but it was actually one of the high-rise buildings, and it was a Bank of America building. And I go to the silversmith shop, the area that used to be the silversmith shop, and the same building's still there.
Oh, wow.
It's now TD Ameritrade.
Of course.
But there's a sign at Manhattan Park. And Manhattan Park, mind you, is actually just mulch with like 5 trees stuck in it. It looked like green space on the map, so it took me a minute to find it. But when I get there, there is a sign, and it is talking about how this was the exact location. And mind you, this is a block from where I was drawn by my ancestry. It was the exact location of the New York slave market.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I need to read this to you because the atrocious part about this sign is that it was new.
Yeah.
And that it spoke these facts with no remorse.
Yeah.
None at all. I mean, it was so hard to read because they...
Yeah.
Okay, listen. New York's municipal slave trade. It's got a nice little picture of the area when it was a nice looking slave trade. See?
Oh.
Ooh, it's like the Fulton Street Market.
Yeah.
It is actually just like it.
Yeah.
And it's actually a block away or so from the Fulton Street Market here in New York. So it says, on Wall Street, between Pearl and Water Streets, for those of you from Grand Rapids understand why that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
A market that auctioned enslaved people of African ancestry was established by Common Council law on November 30th, 1711. The slave market was in use until 1762. Slave owners wanting to hire out their enslaved workers, which included people of Native American ancestry, as day laborers, also had to do so at that location. In 1726, the structure was renamed the meal market because corn, grain, and meal, crucial ingredients to the colonial diet, were also exclusively traded there. Slavery was introduced to Manhattan in 1626. By the mid-18th century, approximately 1 in 5 people living in New York City was enslaved, and almost half of Manhattan households included at least one slave. Although New York State abolished slavery in 1827, complete abolition came only in 1841 when the state of New York abolished the right of non-residents to have slaves in the state for up to 9 months. However, the use of slave labor elsewhere for the production of raw materials such as sugar and cotton was essential to the economy of New York, both before and after the Civil War. Slaves also cleared forest land for the construction of Broadway and were among the workers that built the wall that Wall Street is named for and helped build the first Trinity Church. Within months of the market's construction, New York's first slave uprising occurred a few blocks away on Maiden Lane, led by enslaved people from the Coromantee and Paw peoples of Ghana. So Occupy Wall Street has happened many a times before for hundreds of years. And it needs to happen again. And when we do it, we need to occupy that corner, all of that area especially. But that's where it needs to start.
Darren, I want to applaud this show. I want to applaud the fact that years before Tulsa became a household term, as it is this week, you were talking about it on this show. You're open door. And that's not the first example. So I'm going to use that kind of legacy to make a proposal here, okay?
Okay.
I want 2 new signs to be planted, one outside of Allendale, and on that sign I want that to say the Confederate capital of Michigan. And then up at Mount Pleasant, another sign northwest of Mount Pleasant, because the buildings are still there.
Oh, for the school?
Yeah, they're still there.
Really?
I went to school there. Now, that what they say, and they're always by citizens defaced because of what the atrocities that took place there. But the newspaper always says it's Halloween pranks, even though it might be in July, right?
Wow.
So people know of this place.
Right.
And how about a plaque, one of the Michigan green and white plaques that say this is Michigan's genocide capital? Because we know that there are Native Americans that were killed there. We also know that it existed from 1832. Let me check this out. 1893 to 1934. Okay, they averaged between 400 and 500 students a year. That might be an underestimate. It was called the Federal Indian Boarding School System. It took children from their parents and their culture as part of a forced education and white cultural assimilation. That's their words.
Yep.
They persisted for nearly a century. The guy that started it was Richard Henry Pratt, who was a Civil War veteran and considered to be a cultural hero for trying to save these lost generation of Native Americans. It's a history story that rivals the black slave market here in the United States.
They're lost souls, Jack. They don't have Christianity. They're lost souls.
Oh, I have an article.
Makes me cringe.
I need to find it, but it is...
Katie, while you're looking for that,
Okay.
Can I make one correction? You keep saying that we keep repeating history over and over again. Can I make the argument that that's not true, because that would require for it to stop and then start up again? I'm saying this is a continuation of what we've been doing.
Yeah.
We've just been changing the targets.
Yes.
Instead of Native Americans, now it's brown people of Hispanic descent.
But no, you're
that
right.
we're
It's
now
always,
separating the children from their
I think
families.
it's been all of them, and it's just been highlighted in different areas. Like maybe we didn't notice before, or the media is making it more apparent. Now we're seeing it in real time. With the natives, it took us till it was, we didn't have that education. We didn't have Southpaws to talk about it. So
Right.
I think.
And the thing is, after that school closed in Mount Pleasant, what did they do with those students? They probably moved them up to the other school that operated up around the Sheboygan or Charlevoix area up until 1982. But there was another school in the Upper Peninsula that operated until 1954.
Yeah. But, Kate, you mentioned something really important. There is no education now of any of this. 50 years ago, there was. It was mandatory reading that you read The Heart of Darkness. Can you imagine The Heart of Darkness? Or in some cases, in very advanced sociology classes, they analyzed the classic called Birth of a Nation.
Okay, and I've heard a lot of this book, but it was never read when I was in school. It was never assigned. I've only heard of it in the last few years doing the research I've learned since learning about the Tulsa Massacre and learning about the Red Scare and all the things that they just don't teach in school.
Yeah, and we read Bury My Heart, Wounded Knee, 1967.
Yeah, and you just told me the title of the name, or the title of the book.
It's classic, absolute classic.
And Katy and I were talking before we started recording that she'd never heard about the Red Scare, but they were teaching it up at my little school up in the middle of a cornfield, literally.
Yeah, I was just
1986.
I was just talking to a girl last night who's 24, and I was telling her about it, and she was like, "This happened where? When?"
Oh, I know.
She had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For decades, right in the face of white America, right in the middle of Michigan, at Mount Pleasant, of all monikers.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, I have a article, and I don't know if I'll find it in time, but it is basically, I had saved it sometime last year. It was a propaganda article talking about all of the poor children living in poverty, the Native children. And you could tell that obviously it was written as they were taking the children and putting them in these schools.
Oh, lovely.
Well, if we're going to play culture tug of war, let's go now against the Trump culture, right?
Yes.
If you got a bumper sticker, it was stolen, right?
Yep.
If you refuse to put a mask on, if you won't take your vaccination, we want your kids.
Yeah.
We're here to save your kids.
Yeah, somebody has to teach your kids some morals. If they don't have integrity, then we're looking at a whole nother 100 years of this crap, and I'm done with that.
Yeah.
So I think we need to round up these children.
Yeah, like Ghostbusters.
That's right. We need to read
There you
culture.
go.
White
Let's
ambulance.
culturally appropriate the Christianity right out of them.
Oh,
Exercise of
God.
Christianity. Right. That's too good.
Hey,
We can do an exorcism.
Put your hand on the face of Noam Chomsky over here.
Yes.
And Howard Zinn, look me directly in the eye.
Hold on, we're going to
there
have
you
Bernie
go.
Sanders swear you in.
There you go.
I command you in the name of Bernie Sanders, leave this child.
Oh, God. I don't know. You don't have your headphones
You shall
on.
stand with workers and take care of your fellow man.
You had to mention Ghostbusters. I've actually got it rolling right now.
Let's hear a little bit of that.
Yeah,
We need
there
it.
we go. Yeah.
Trump busters.
Trump Busters. There we go.
Ooh, I'm in. I'm going to make the logo.
Trump Busters. Oh, God. I got to stop.
I better get a vacuum pack out of this.
Natural
Oh,
progression.
Gosh.
Just
Yeah.
a natural progression. You screwed with the
wow.
minds of Native Americans for how many years?
Yeah.
You thought you knew the right way to think and live?
And that's the craziest part is they're not the ones to mess with. They're the only ones that know real medicine. They know how to really grow food.
We
They
learned
know-
democracy from the Indians.
We've
The founders
learned
that wrote our
everything
democracy
from them,
got
yeah.
it from the tribes in New York,
I'm sure.
of all places.
That makes total sense
They
to
also
me.
saw women leading the tribes. They were the major leaders of all the tribes, females.
Right? And they
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
have this whole marriage
Yeah.
thing. One woman belongs
Sure.
to one man type deal. They actually took care of themselves and
Yes,
their
they did.
families and each
Yeah.
other. And
Hell, you can't have that allowed.
Yeah.
You got to
No.
eradicate that right now.
oh, I saw an article or a Facebook post the other day. It had a picture of some graves in the UP, and they were native graves, but they had white crosses on them.
Oh, of course.
Lady comes on and she says, "I am so confused." She said, "And please help me here." And I'm asking honestly, why would these native graves have Christian crosses? And I thought, I don't know if she's being honest or not, but I love how she just asked this question because somebody has
It's
to
time
answer
for
it.
an education.
Somebody has to answer it now, and they're going to have to be honest,
There
you
you
know?
go. Yeah.
And it was a
Yeah.
one-word answer. Missionaries.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
somebody should probably expand on that. But I was like, we're going to let this conversation go at its own thing. And by the end of it, there was a pretty good educational explanation of how natives ended up with crosses on their graves. And I thought, they're
Why
really...
wouldn't they? It makes
Yeah.
total sense, Katie. Noam Chomsky said the Bible, the Old Testament, is the most genocidal book ever written.
I
Yeah,
absolutely
absolutely.
agree. Yeah.
I've said it on this show. The Bible is the most violent book
Yeah,
ever wrote.
it's
Yeah.
the
Sure,
foundation
it
of
wipes out
every
everybody.
war.
It tells Moses, when you go in there, you kill everybody and you grind their ashes up into dust. And he didn't do that. And the God gets mad at him and said, I told you to grind up their bodies into ashes. I didn't write it.
yeah.
The
Can I
most
tell you
genocidal
something?
book in history.
Can I tell you something I just learned scientifically the other day?
Yeah.
That it's lead. If you heat lead to a hot enough temperature, in bone ash, it separates the gold or the precious metals out of it.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Maybe that's...
All I could think about was World War II
Sure.
and the gas chambers.
It all adds up.
He
Like
had
Carlin said.
they found all that.
Yeah. God needs a little of our money, a little more money. So get a little gold out of our bones.
Wow.
Why not?
That is so sick.
He loves you, but he needs your money.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so sick, but it's so real.
You just had to mention the gas chambers. But real quickly, I want to mention, have any of you seen Arizona is looking at starting gas chambers again and using the same chemical
gas.
that the Nazis used in the concentration camps in the 40s.
Are we sure this is just Arizona? Because have y'all seen the smokestacks in Grand Rapids that are everywhere now?
Yeah.
Is it not reminiscent of Germany in World War II? Because
Yeah.
I keep seeing them and I'm going, why? What? Why? What are they doing?
Yeah, see, bodies are evidence.
Exactly. And if you can use them to get precious metals, they need precious metals right now. And if Arizona's buying that much of this gas, they've already purchased the gas, the same kind.
Yeah. Unbelievable stuff.
Cyan
here.
green.
It'll probably happen early in the morning is what we've learned on this show today. So
Yeah.
Yeah, before breakfast. You know,
Of course.
so I'm going to start eating breakfast earlier. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. Speaking of breakfast, I have not been able to find Together with Pride yet on any shelf in the area.
Really?
That's the Kellogg cereal that I mentioned on last week's show.
Right.
That's basically Kellogg's is doing as a fundraiser for GLAAD. And I can't... Meijer? None. Can't find it. I've been to 2 Meijer stores, can't
I
find
wonder
it.
if White Meyer will carry it, though. Let's be honest here.
Homophobic Meijer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, just, yeah.
Peter Myers Meyer.
Bingo! Bingo. Hey, I want to real quickly talk about for a few minutes what happened over the weekend with Naomi Osaka and the French Open. Absolutely appalling behavior by every single tennis association. It's the British, it's the Australians, it's us, it's the French. They all sanctioned. What did they fine her? $15,000 because she didn't want to talk to the media because it's stressful for her. Mm-hmm. But then they say, "Oh, we want to check in on you. We want to make sure you're okay because we know that this is stressful. But you still have to do this, or we're going to fine you. Oh, if you don't do it again, we're going to kick you off the tour. We'll suspend you indefinitely." Yeah, this was something that the thought came up during EMDR therapy this week.
Thanks for talking about that, Darren, because it's important to talk about mental health because we've all got it and we need to normalize the conversation around it.
Yeah. So while I'm holding tappers and going through my own trauma, this kicked into my head for some reason. And I even told my therapist, I'm like, I have no idea why this just popped in my head. She said, it's all tied together.
Yeah.
And I put it on Facebook, on my personal Facebook. If Naomi Osaka fell on the court and broke her wrist, would tennis officials make her do media interviews before taking her to the hospital?
That's an
Really,
excellent,
you need to think
excellent
about that.
analogy. It really is. It doesn't get any better than that.
Just because you can't see an injury doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And this has been a big deal for me. I've talked about my mental health issues. I've been in a mental hospital. I have attempted suicide 4 times. This is important that we talk about this. And Naomi just said, you know what? I'm done. Screw it. I'm walking away. Till you guys fix it, I'm done. She is the highest paid tennis star in the world. And she just basically told them to go themselves.
Yes, and I wish the NBA players would follow her.
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
And I'm telling you, and we hadn't planned on talking about this, but the fans attacking the NBA players is, to
That
me,
is becoming
last
disgusting
year,
too.
Last year, this time, there was a perfect opportunity for the NBA to use their power
strike.
and to go on strike
Yep.
and to make real change. And I'm personally going to put this one on you, LeBron. I don't know if they threatened you or not, but LeBron, you pressured those other guys for the younger players, and that was BS because those guys might get shot in their cars on the way to practice. Mm-hmm. And now they got to get stuff thrown at them when they go out on the floor, you know? So it's just like...
Yeah.
They're gladiators. The Romans brought in people for entertainment.
Bread and
right?
circus.
Success.
Yes, and that's what she did. This woman who worked her whole life to be the best, She was out there just where a lot of these people are, and I understand when you work your whole life and you made it to the NBA or you made it to the Open or anything like that. Yeah. That's everything, But what's it for? What's it for? Do you want a championship ring in a world where your kids are going to get shot dead on the way to the celebration, or where you're going to kill yourself because they pressure you so much that you just can't even think or live anymore? Like, what's it for? It's the little things. And Osaka said, I think her sentence, I don't know if you have the exact quote.
I don't.
So moving. I have it on my Facebook page. She basically said, I had been waiting a really long time, and I always thought it would be really great if somebody in tennis did something about this. And that was when I realized that maybe that somebody was going to have to be me.
Yeah. That's I remember her saying that.
And that made me cry because I thought, generally that is where the thinking goes. It's got to be somebody else.
Yep.
Because I've worked too hard. I can't sacrifice this. And the one thing that she has done and that Kaepernick has done is they sacrificed. They sacrificed in the name of other people's health and safety. And Muhammad Ali. And that is heroism, It
definitely is.
It's the most courageous things I've seen. I haven't seen that from a police officer. They can never sacrifice. Gosh, they can't even risk a sacrifice.
No, the death that the hundreds of NFL players have from a disease.
From concussions
from the CTE.
And head injuries. Yes.
Is a slow decay until they die.
Yeah.
And how many black owners do you got out there? How many black powerful people do you have in the NBA, the MLB? But if you look at the best people out on the field, it's like, come on.
Yeah, the $65 million contracts to college coaches for football. Meantime, they can't rebuild their libraries to college. They can't, in many cases, provide help for married students in the form of, child care, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
All those programs are atrophied.
These are billionaires with yachts bigger than the city we live in.
It's absurd. It is way out of bounds.
Yeah.
But good for her for standing up and saying something, because especially when she was in that place, I mean, that to me is the bravest part, is that she did it from that place. And she said, you know what? F it.
I thought it was brave when the valedictorian stood up and said, this is not fair that my body, 17 years of age?
Yep.
I just heard about this before the show because Darren mentioned you were going to talk about it. And that is very inspiring.
I've actually got the story right here. This is Lydia O'Connor writing for the Huffington Post. This is dated June 2nd. A Texas high schooler tasked with delivering the valedictorian address at her graduation ceremony ditched her school-approved speech and used her platform to take down her state's new abortion ban last weekend. Paxton Smith, the 2021 valedictorian at Dallas's Lake Highlands High School, pulled a copy of her new speech from her graduation robe, and she said this, quote, "It feels wrong to talk about anything but what is currently affecting me and millions of other women in this state." End of quote. The issue affecting millions of Texas women is an extreme abortion ban Governor Greg Abbott signed last month. It effectively bans abortion at 6 weeks into pregnancy, which is before many women even know that they're pregnant, and is slated to go into effect in September. Smith, who shared some of her decision-making process with Dallas's D Magazine on Tuesday, said, quote, "I refuse to give up this platform to promote complacency and peace when there is a war on my body and a war on my rights." End of quote. After getting the okay from her parents to proceed with a vastly different speech than the one that was approved by her school administrators, she practiced her new address until she nearly memorized it. And good for her parents for sticking up for her.
Absolutely.
I just my jaw just dropped that she went to her parents for permission and that they gave it to her, because I'm like, if they wouldn't have, I don't think she would have gone to him. But
no.
Obviously, she's got good roots. So.
Yes.
But in would have been the Trump Ghostbusters. We could have taken her.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And how about the kids whose parents turn on them if they come out of the closet and say they're gay?
So many.
Get them. We'll drive them out, too.
Or the ones that you can't have black friends, or you can't, there are all kinds of parents that need to.
There's plenty of space on the bus.
Exactly. The audience erupted in applause as Smith detailed what exactly is at stake. She said, quote, "I have dreams, hopes, and ambition. Every girl here does. We have spent our whole lives working toward our futures, and without our consent or input, our control over our futures has been stripped away from us. I am terrified that if my contraceptives fail me, that if I am raped, then my hopes and efforts and dreams for myself will no longer be relevant. I hope you can feel how gut-wrenching it is, how dehumanizing it is to have the autonomy over your own body taken from you. End of quote.
Beautiful.
Footage of Smith's speech began reaching a wider audience in the days following her address as media outlets Hillary Clinton and other public figures applauded her. Hillary tweeted, quote, "This took guts," end of quote.
Yep.
Texas is one of several states to pass a 6-week abortion ban in recent legislative sessions. They're typically billed as fetal heartbeat laws that would ban abortion as soon as doctors can detect a heartbeat in the fetus. But doctors say that language is medically inaccurate and misleading. So, again, they're writing laws and they're not consulting doctors or, for that matter, consulting women that are going to be the focus of these laws.
So I got a little story to tell you. It ties in here because my son is a 7th grader.
Yes.
So he's doing sex ed in school. And he came to me last week and he said, "Mom, I have to interview you for my reproductive health class." And I thought, okay.
Here we go.
And he comes over and he gives me a pamphlet. First thing I do is look at it, and it's got this thing about waiting until marriage. Mm-hmm. And I look at the bottom, and it's got an address on it. Yep. Cherry Street.
Yeah.
One would think, oh, this must be Planned Parenthood, right? I already know better. Nope. As soon as I see this stuff about waiting until marriage in Cherry Street, I'm going, okay, it's the Pregnancy Resource Center, which is the place right next door to Planned Parenthood with a neon sign that tries to attract you there so they can sell your baby instead of you getting an abortion. And that is exactly what their agenda is. I don't care what anyone says.
Yep.
They shame you into giving them your baby because they think they can give them a better life.
Shame
and
you
your baby is going to grow up traumatized.
And they shame you into forced pregnancy.
Oh, yeah. Forced pregnancy, which is also a human rights violation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What school was it, Katie?
It was
Or is it?
Kellogg'sville Middle School, which is currently...
We just had an ant crawling all over Katie.
It totally got me out of nowhere. I think it was like on me already too. But anyways, so the Pregnancy Resource Center is sponsoring the sexual reproductive health thing at Kellogg'sville Middle School, which is we have a community resource officer, a clothed police officer that stands outside the door of the school before and after. We have no crossing guards. So there's 5 lanes of traffic on Division Avenue, and I watch these middle schoolers dodging cars. They're not allowed to. They're not supposed to. But there's nobody there to stop them. And when I go up to the officer who spends every afternoon as the bell rings talking to the principal and the assistant principal, who are 2 white men and also look like cops, the 3 of them stand there and talk to each other while these kids are out playing Frogger. And my daughter in 2nd grade, her best friend was hit and killed 2 inches from her. I mean, they both crossed the street. Her best friend got hit and killed 60th and Eastern. She was a 2nd grader, and she's still incredibly traumatized. It was horrible. So for me, it is anxiety inducing. I have to go around and go the back way to the school because I'm so scared, and I don't know how to stop it because one person can't stop it. We need at least 3 people out there on the street stopping the kids from crossing.
Yeah.
Incredible. But that program has been proven that abstain from sex
to
be a total failure. The Bible Belt has tried that crap and call it sex education, and they have the leading numbers across the nation.
The best part is the interview. This is why I started to tell the story before I got way off base. But the interview was, the first question was, "Mom, how is dating different from when you were in high school?" And I said, "Well, it hasn't really changed. Kids see each other, they like each other, they might go out, they might not." So not much different. The second question was, how common was pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases while you were in high school?
And?
I mean, I got pregnant in high school, so pretty common. And I was so annoyed by this question that I said, "Okay, can you put this in quotes?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Right, in my house, they were very common." I said, "And then I need you to do me a favor." He said, "What?" I said, "When you're in this class and the teacher's having the conversation and she's talking to you about all the risks and dangers of getting pregnant before marriage, I want you to stop her real quick and say, excuse me, hold on." And when she asks what, you say, "I'm sorry, I'm really confused because I thought my mom really loved my sister. Are you telling me she was a mistake?"
There you go.
He laughed so hard, but I swear to God, he went to school and did it.
Did he do it?
He did it. He came back and he laughed so hard telling me about it, and he turned in that interview, and I was so proud to be his mom.
He should be next to Miss Paxton. His picture should be with, is not her name, the abortion?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I just thought
that's
it was
an incredible story.
I was like, go you.
Paxton Smith, yeah.
That is amazing,
good
Katy.
Lord.
Yeah, I got nothing against abortion or teenage pregnancy, to be honest. I had an abortion after my teenage pregnancy. Thank God.
But you're right. Abbott is just unhinged. And the thing is,
him and the idiot in Florida too.
yeah, this woman will be excoriated by Fox News. She is already. Miss Paxton, Paxton Smith, as Kaepernick was, as the tennis star. I can't pronounce the woman's name.
Naomi Osaka.
She already is being called a sissy, etc. Can't run her life, the whole crap.
Those are badges of honor for women like us. That go ahead, put me on Fox News and talk. What are you going to call me, a slut? Like, don't make me proud like that.
Don't give me any ideas.
Don't give me a badge of honor.
Oh, God, yeah. Among the people that have really ripped on Naomi Osaka have been Tucker Carlson.
Yep.
I have another word that rhymes with Tucker that I can't use on FCC regulated airway.
Smucker's jelly.
And the other one is Laura Ingraham, and I might as well just play this clip.
This right-wing slut, what's her name, Laura Ingraham? Yeah, she's a talk slut.
Thank you, Eddie. The late, great Ed Schultz, who, by the way, got in big trouble for calling Laura Ingraham a slut on national talk radio.
You should have picked me because I think it's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my God. Hey, speaking of badges of honor, we might as well get to the awards. We got to play the appropriate music.
Stop. Hammer time.
Oh, yeah, it's hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. We've got 2 winners this week. So anytime that we have 2 winners, we also got to play this clip.
Double douche.
Who is that guy?
Gentlemen, Wade Garrett.
Holy sh**.
Exactly right.
That's right.
Exactly right.
All right. Winner number 1 is Idaho Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin. I have this story. This is Phil Helsel writing for NBC News with the Associated Press helping out as well. This is out of Boise, Idaho, dated May 27th. Idaho Governor Brad Little on Friday issued an executive order repealing a mask mandate prohibition put in place while he was out of state by the lieutenant governor, describing her actions as a tyrannical abuse of power and a, quote, irresponsible, self-serving political stunt, end of quote.
That saves lives.
So in Idaho, they've thrown out the 11th commandment altogether. Thou shalt never speak ill of another Republican. So the Republican governor up to now had been reserved in his comments about Republican Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin, a member of the far right who has worked to undermine Little's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Far right, the Qckoos.
Yeah,
she's a Qckoo. Last week, she announced her run for governor, challenging the first-term incumbent Little. Her executive order Thursday banning mask mandates in schools and public buildings is widely seen as part of that campaign, and she is already using that executive order in fundraising efforts. Little never issued a statewide mask mandate, but counties, cities, and schools have issued their own directives. Many have been lifted as more Idaho residents have been vaccinated, but 2 counties and 10 cities still have them in place, as do multiple schools. Little tweeted Friday afternoon that he, quote, does not like political stunts over the rule of law. However, the significant consequences of the lieutenant governor's flimsy executive order require me to clean up a mess, end of quote. McGeachin signed the executive order banning mask requirements while Little was at the Republican Governors Association get-together in Nashville, Tennessee last week. The same one where they kicked Mike Lindell out because he wasn't a member of the RGA.
Wouldn't the lieutenant governor be there too? Why wouldn't they go? I wonder if she didn't get invited.
She might not be a member of the RGA. Oh, my God. She said in a statement that she was acting as acting governor and that the executive order prohibits the state or other jurisdictions, such as school districts, from imposing mask mandates. The governor's office told NBC affiliate KTVB of Boise Thursday that McGeachin, quote, did not make Governor Little aware of her executive order ahead of time, end of quote. The statement also noted there has not been a statewide mask mandate. Little statement said, quote, Idahoans value local control and the local approach to addressing important issues, end of quote. Some cities that had required masks have already lifted them. Boise, the state's largest city and capital, on May 14th said it would no longer require masks. A number of other states, including Democratic-led Minnesota and New Jersey, have lifted or are largely lifting statewide mask requirements as vaccinations have risen. And in the wake of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidance, the vaccinated people don't need masks in any settings, or in many settings, I should say. McGeachin tweeted Thursday that the executive order was, quote, to protect the rights and liberties of individuals and businesses, end of quote. She told the Associated Press, quote, I've been listening to people all across the state with concern about, especially, why are little kids being forced to wear masks in school, end of quote. She said she hoped Little would allow her executive order to stand, but as soon as he got back into town, nope, bye-bye. In a statement she posted on Twitter, McGeachin said Friday that Little, quote, chose to revoke your personal freedoms by rescinding my order and imposing mask mandates on thousands of Idaho children, rejecting the conservative solutions embraced by leaders like Governor Abbott in Texas and Governor DeSantis in Florida, end of quote. Yeah, two more, as I said, Qckoos. They're nuts.
I've been
They're
seeing
insane.
too many of those bumper stickers around here, man. They're crazy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And then we
Number
have number two, two-time winner already this year, financial guru, quote-unquote guru, radio host, and violent conservative, Dave Ramsey. Gets it again.
Ram it.
This is from Inside Edition. This is published June 1st. Timeshare Exit Team, a company endorsed by financial guru Dave Ramsey, says it can help people out of unwanted timeshare contracts. But several customers told Inside Edition they regret ever signing up with the Timeshare Exit Team. It may have seemed like a good investment at the time, a vacation getaway where you can spend a week or two or more. But some say they rue the day they bought into an expensive timeshare. Dave Ramsey also thinks timeshares are a bad investment. For 3 years, he's been telling his listeners stuck in timeshares that there's a way out, a company called Timeshare Exit Team. He said, quote, Timeshare Exit Team, it's the only people we endorse for getting you out of your timeshare because it works, end of quote. I'm trying to do my best Dave Ramsey impersonation.
That's
there.
a tough job.
But several customers have told Inside Edition they regret ever signing up for Timeshare Exit Team.
They promised money back guarantee, and they balked. They
Yeah.
won't give the money back.
Absolutely. One customer said, quote, you're already in a bad situation trying to get out of the timeshare, and then you hire a company that you think is there to help you, only to find out that you've been duped, end of quote.
Yep.
In one video, the CEO of Timeshare Exit Team, Brandon Reed, tells Ramsey they offer a money-back guarantee. Quote, we offer a 100% money-back guarantee. If we can't get them out, we give them their money back, period, end of quote. And by the way, Reed has been on Ramsey's show talking about this. Richard and Rosemary Sweeting say Timeshare Exit Team should refund their $5,000 because after years they've received no results. They ended up negotiating themselves out of their own timeshare. Richard Sweeting said, quote, at least honor your money-back guarantee, end of quote. By the way, 24 of these customers of Timeshare Exit Team have hired a lawyer. So
Maybe
class
a class
action
action
lawsuit. Lawyer Greg Abbott, who represents these people, said this, quote, these customers are very vulnerable. They often feel like they've been victimized by the timeshare company itself, and then they get victimized again, end of quote. Here's why Dave Ramsey gets the douchebag of the week. They sent investigative correspondent Lisa Guerrero to hunt down Dave Ramsey. He was at a conference in Dallas. She was chasing him. It's on video. She was chasing him. He's running from her, literally jogging away from her. One of his security guys, this big goon, grabs Lisa Guerrero by the arm and left bruises on her.
Does anyone name the goon?
I
want
think
his
they
name and
do.
his address, first
They
of
had
all.
a picture of it
I want his name and his address because he's a woman abuser, first of all.
No doubt.
And second of all, I want to know if he works for anybody for a security company, and I want to know their name. But I'm gonna look into that, and I will have it for us next week.
Yes,
because
Have you guys gone through a timeshare lecture?
I have,
No,
yes.
I have not.
I went through one of the Disney World ones, and it was
I did too.
horrible.
To get tickets to Disneyland?
Yes, but
Yeah.
I didn't get the tickets because I got through one of the things and decided not doing it anymore, and there was like a bunch that I had to do.
I made it through, and I had to physically
wow.
fight my way out of the room.
Oh my gosh, I believe
Literally.
it.
Oh,
I
yeah,
believe
they
it. I
brought
wouldn't
in-
let him trap me. That's why I had to.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It was scary to me, and how they harassed me for years. I mean, I was still getting stuff in the mail, getting stuff in my phone. I couldn't believe it.
I got the tickets.
Yeah,
You did? Good for you.
yeah,
Then you
Lisa.
got the hell out of there.
Lisa Guerrero ended up with a sprained wrist and bruises on her arm.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna find that man's name and hopefully his address. Maybe if he has kids, we'll send the Trump busters.
Like Katie says,
Yeah.
we need protectors to the journalists in the United States, in the world for that matter.
Yeah, I was thinking that we need to find a way to create a law enforcement agency that is run by the media, the people that need them to be protected. You know,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
that's kind of how law enforcement agencies are supposed to be. That's what they tell you, but we need to make
Yeah,
one
it's
that
pretty
actually
idealistic, let's be honest.
Yeah.
does. Truth.
Yeah. So for Idaho Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin and for Dave Ramsey, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You both need to stop being violent, conservative douchebags.
Thanks.
Douchebags.
Unbelievable.
Idaho is too much, isn't it? Just think about it. You know, now the conservatives in Oregon are trying to annex counties so they become part of Idaho.
Yeah, I saw that on the news.
Seriously?
That's
Yeah.
how crazy it's getting.
They really have lost their ever-loving. They really have.
I mean, Idaho is the mecca of craziness.
That is insane.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Hey, real quick.
Can we annex counties to Canada? I'm sorry, you're giving me ideas.
Oh, no, yes.
Well, there was an effort. The Republicans want to take portions of Muskegon County and make a new county out of it.
Yeah.
We need to
Oh,
watch
yeah.
that very carefully
'Cause-
because all of our shipping, our international shipping, has been coming in through the West Coast recently, not the East Coast, which was very noticeable when you drive to Detroit versus
Well, we
driving
better-
to Detroit a few years ago.
We better hurry if we're going to do this because in August, Don's taking over again. It can be reinstated.
Oh, God.
So if you want anything
More
positive, Don-
insanity. Like I said, round them all up, lock them all up, medicate them. Now.
Sidney Powell. Get
But
her
to
free.
to be honest, though, if we don't do something to help people now, I'm worried about Biden's chances at a second term.
Yeah, I would
So
agree.
that's really what we need to focus on.
Sure.
And the Democratic
Yeah.
Party needs to look at themselves for once.
Yeah.
Not that this will happen, so let's just prepare for
No,
what's
but
actually going to happen.
it didn't happen.
Let's prepare for what's actually going to
Stop
happen.
worrying
In
about
16
bipartisanship. I don't want to hear the term.
Oh my
again.
gosh!
Uh,
Yeah,
I
let's
wish
work
they
with
would
the
get-
murderers. We have to work when compromise with the murderers.
No,
That's
we
the
don't.
mantra.
I know. That's
Ugh.
why we can't even work with the Democrats anymore, though. It's at what point do we draw the line?
Yep. Trump's going to be reinstated in August. Yeah, Michael Flynn is going on wherever he can get and is telling people we need to have a Myanmar-style coup in
He
this
did, yeah.
country. The former national security advisor under Trump said this.
And I just
folks.
discovered because of his crazy comments that his brother was a ranking general that was responsible for the 3.5-hour delay on January 6th of the National Guard.
I've been
Wow.
saying we're already in a coup. And it was the
Yeah.
NSA
Yep.
that has initiated it. And the reason they're talking about a Myanmar-style coup is because they don't want people noticing that we're already in the middle of it. Go watch these construction projects. Look at the shipping crates and where they're coming from. Do you know what they're putting in ground right now?
They're not using the term coup anymore.
Yep. No, they're not. Folks, we are out of time for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Katy Steele.
I'm Jack Prince.
For our announcer, Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First
The
Amendment.
stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.